inability to offer new cross-channel customer journeys, personalization, and mutualizing stock positions to leverage cross-channel capabilities. And that's where Fluent Commerce is really awesome. So they are solving real problems that exist in the legacy architecture.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. While there is much talk about the coolest e-commerce platforms out there, the large majority of the market share is still in the brick-and-mortar setting, especially among retailers. This makes the POS and OMS experience far more critical than e-commerce. Also, to get the e-commerce experience right, you need to have omnichannel experience, unified experience. Whatever the name you might want to give, it's a necessity for today's commerce experience. So how can Fluent Commerce help? In today's episode, we are going to independently review Fluent Commerce's capabilities. We covered many grounds, including why the OMS is going to be a need for large retailers in their architecture, even if it might feel unnecessary. Then we discussed how it interacts with other toolsets in the architecture. Finally, we discussed why the best of breed approach may not be as expensive as it might appear due to the pre-baked integrations available through the commerce providers. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our e-commerce series for which we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution related to e-commerce. And for today, we have a very interesting solution. They are part of the headless, composable Mac community and one of the most popular one called Fluent Commerce. So we are going to be discussing where they fit in the enterprise architecture, what has been their journey, and who are going to be their target customers, which customers are going to find the most value from this solution. Before we do that, I am going to start with my quick intro. If you don't know me, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ and your host. And Elevate IQ is the ERP, e-commerce, as well as digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients when they undertake any sort of digital transformation engagements with their strategy planning or the implementation help they might be. So for today, as we have mentioned that we are discussing Fluent Commerce, but before we do that, if you're in the audience and have any sort of questions and comments, make sure you guys post in the comment box. I will be checking the comments periodically and answering those during the show. And if we run out of time, then we'll make sure that you are going to receive your answers. On that note, I am going to provide a quick brief of what Fluent Commerce really is. So Fluent Commerce, the way they are positioned in the market, they are best of breed in the headless community, and their role is going to be to act as that OMS layer. And this is going to be your order management system. And typically, the order management system, when you look at the architecture, for the most part, this is going to be relevant primarily for retailers. And the reason why they need to have OMS in the architecture is because if they have any sort of brick and mortar presence, then they need to have the POS layer. For the most part, if you look at the legacy architecture, the customers traditionally used to have this connected POS layer, and that's how they were able to look into the inventory of different stores, if they had to send, let's say, a customer from one store to the next, they used to do that using the POS layer. Most of the traditional brick and mortar players didn't really have any sort of e-commerce presence, so they didn't have the omni-channel problems that we are facing in the newer architecture, especially if you talk about unified commerce or the omni-channel experience. Now, some of the legacy POS vendors, they have developed their capabilities in terms of e-commerce, but their e-commerce is not going to be as great. So the OMS layer is still relevant, at least for the retailers and for some of the other vendors as well, depending upon how centralized they want the order management layer need to be. Sometimes this is going to be part of your e-commerce layer, and sometimes that might be integrated with the platform. So there is a lot of overlap overall in the market. But if you are looking for that best of breed experience, okay, you want all of your orders to be consolidated as part of your OMS layer, and you cannot really utilize the ERP for that, because for the most part, for retailers, they don't really have the same MRP processes that you are going to have, let's say, in the industrial distribution or the manufacturing space. So depending upon the industry, which industry you are part of, and in some cases, when you are going to have hybrid business models, it becomes very complicated in general. But for the most part, the OMS is probably going to be relevant just with the retailers. That's where they are going to have most value. Now, if you have the hybrid business model, sometimes you might still utilize the OMS, but the order flow might go through the ERP, especially in the B2B verticals. In some B2B verticals, when you are going to have your consumerized customers, and let's say if you have a lot of mom and pop customers and they care for that e-commerce experience, there also you are probably going to be utilizing some sort of OMS layer, which is going to be utilized by your internal sales reps as well as by the customers. So these are some of the patches where OMS is going to be relevant, but for the most part, most retailers are going to be using this. Now, in the newer OMS platforms, especially when you talk about the likes of Fluent, right now, if you look at their capabilities, they are going to have the omni-channel capabilities across the devices. They can do faster development overall because they have the no-code, low-code platform that can allow you to map your order flow. And again, depending upon the kind of architecture that you would like to build for your industry, for your company. So Fluent Commerce can do a lot, but obviously that's going to be a longer implementation time, because when you have to develop these capabilities versus buying something off the shelf, if you are developing or configuring, it might take longer time as well as budget. So that's why, for the most part, these platforms were traditionally positioned at the enterprises. SMB companies may not have as much budget. Now, for the most part, Fluent goes along with the likes of, let's say, Commerce Tool. That's where they are installed the most, but it also pairs up with some of the other platforms. For example, they are very well present in the Salesforce ecosystem as well. And then they have, I believe, partnership with Magento or Adobe. So those are three ecosystems where they are present. And when you are looking at the best of breed architecture, sometimes the integration could be very expensive in general. So these vendors, when you talk about the best of breed composable commerce players, as well as all of the headless vendors, they have created the pre-baked integration. So either they are going to provide that, or one of the agencies are going to own the IP, and then you are going to have slightly more packaged implementations the way you are going to see in the ERP space. And that's why you are going to see these installations commonly in a specific ecosystem. And that's why Fluent Commerce, you will see a lot more with Commerce Tools, Salesforce Commerce, as well as your Magento or Adobe Commerce. Overall, their positioning in the market, they are slightly newer. I believe they started in 2016, and we are going to discuss all of those details, what has been their journey, and who is investing in these companies. So we are going to look at all of that. But for the most part, they are valued very high in general, the way other headless or the composable vendors are valued in the market. So now I am going to start with the slides. So here, this is the commentary that is coming from 2017. And the commentary says the Fluent Commerce, formerly known as Fluent Retail, so they started as more of the retail vendor, and their play right now, even today, it's going to be primarily in the retail space. That's where you have millions and millions of orders, and the real problem of omni channel that might not be as common in the other industries or micro verticals. So their scope is primarily going to be limited. And if you look at their customer logos, the kind of logos that they have, it's going to be primarily related to retail. Now, if you have DTC brands or brands trying to build their DTC channel, those could be some of the other spaces where you might see them. So here they are saying in 2017 they started and they had raised roughly 6.5 million Australian dollars from high profile international investors, including Blue Sky Ventures. They were the ones who had invested in this, and they had got the CEO of Hybris. So obviously, they have a lot of e commerce expertise in house in general, just because he is coming from SAP. So here, if you look at some of their logos, Fluent Commerce already has a number of key retail customers in Australia and UK, including Woolworths, JD Sports, Big W, Samsung, Australia Post, Nine West, Brass and Things, French Connection, and all of them are going to be very retail-centric brands. These are going to be fashion brands, and that's where the real problem is of omni-channel unified commerce, and that's where Fluent Commerce is going to add a lot of value. Then we have some more commentary here coming from 2019. And this is, I think, Smith Optics, and this is going to be another retail brand. So in retail as well, you might have a lot of layers. So this is the Optics brand, and they might have a lot of different brick and mortar stores, but they might also have the e-commerce presence. The world leader in the production of ski goggles, so this is the sports vertical, as well as helmets, along with premium sunglasses and prescription frames, has chosen Fluent Commerce, the world's #1 distributed order management. And that's the another term that you are going to hear in the industry, and that is going to be distributed order management. And typically the role of distributed order management in the architecture is going to be, if you look at the pure play commerce experience, then typically the role of OMS is going to be, okay, how can we split the order, send to multiple fulfillment channels, and sometimes there could be multiple vendors involved. For example, let's say if you are doing mix and match of drop shipping versus fulfilling part of the order in-house, that's where all of those scenarios are going to be handy. Typically, the more complex your business model is going to be, the more enterprisey your shop is, you are probably going to require all of those capabilities. I am going to mention one of the caveat overall from the e-commerce presence perspective, the way these vendors like to think about the architecture, especially when you look at just the commerce architecture. So in the commerce, they like to think, especially in the retail space, where the ERP, MRP systems are not going to be as common just because they don't need it, okay? So they are probably going to be doing some financial reporting in the back end. Sometimes they might use an accounting system, they might call it ERP. But for the most part, the role of ERP system, if you are a pure play retail, then it's probably going to be really minimal. I have seen cases where they are using an accounting system, but for the most part, the reporting is probably done inside your BI, because the reason for that is because they might not have the accurate inventory count. They might have multiple ledgers for the inventory for merchandising, and because of that, they need to do a lot of reconciliation in-house, and that's why they need to do that inside your BI layer, because ERP systems will not be as flexible for these custom processes. Or in some cases, you might use some sort of merchandising system, and that merchandising system might act as the ERP system. So if you look at the traditional or the standard ERP systems, they are not as relevant. The role of those systems in the retail architecture is going to be just the accounting finance. It's super lean, super basic, the way the retail processes are set up. And that's why the OMS plays a much bigger role, because in most cases, the ERP is not going to have that POS layer. ERP systems were never designed for that. Some ERP systems may have integrated, but since your stores are going to get so much traffic, it has to go through a different architecture. It has to be on a different infrastructure. It cannot be tied to your ERP system, and that's why the role of OMS is super critical, because that acts as your order management layer. And sometimes you might see, even if you have some of the B2B transactions that might flow through your ERP, and you are looking for that centralized customer 360 where the customer could be B2C as well as sometimes B2B, then you might get those orders inside your OMS. And OMS is going to act as your centralized hub, because your customers might be looking at it as well as your sales reps might be looking at it if you're looking for slightly more B2B scenario. But in general, the whole idea of OMS is going to be centralizing the whole OMS layer. And sometimes the OMS also clubs with either the distributed fulfillment. These are the new terms that you might hear in the market. So that could be a WMS system, or it could be a distributed warehouse management system that might club with your order management system. But the role of ERP is going to be extremely limited in this architecture. So depending upon your business model, depending upon your business goals, depending upon what architecture you are trying to build, you need to decide, okay, what is going to be the role of OMS in my architecture, and which is going to be the source of authority for the order data. And if it is going to be OMS, this could be one of the systems that you might want to utilize in your architecture. So here, some more commentary coming in. That's where the distributed order management is going to be handy if your order processes are going to be very complex, and if you believe that the WMS needs to be part of it needs to be the extension of your distributed order management, because when you are fulfilling, when you have these BOPIS and ROPIS scenarios, the processes could be all over the place. It could be very complicated. So you need to maintain your store experience, e-commerce experience, drop shipping experience, everything as part of your order management layer. And then if you're fulfilling using your internal warehouse, the WMS layer need to be part of your distributed order management workflow as well. And that's why, the WMS as well as your order management layer could be completely isolated from your ERP layer. The only communication you might have between your order management WMS and the ERP is probably GL entries. But if you are a industrial distributor or a B2B distributor or manufacturing, it might be harder because they go through very different costing cycles. So for them, it might not be okay because they need to have the MRP cycles. So this is primarily relevant in the retail space when you are going to have the brick and mortar experience, and brick and mortar experience is probably the driver of this architecture. Now, here they are talking about the Safilo Group has 7 directly owned manufacturing sites with an extensive, wholly owned global distribution network in 40 countries across North and Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and the Asia Pacific and China. Safilo Group employs more than 6,000 staff worldwide. Now, when you are going to look at this from the enterprise perspective, typically the enterprise that the architecture that enterprises are going to have, it's probably going to be very different from your average SMB. Just because the SMB companies might not have as much IT budget, they might not have as much development integration budget, and that's why they might be on the package software. But when you look at the enterprise companies such as this is a really giant company, they might need the best of breed software for a lot of different processes. Now, there are always going to be pros and cons of every single architecture that you are going to build. But if you if you care for that cutting edge experience, when you are going to care for that BOPIS ROPIS scenario, curbside picking, that's where this particular architecture is going to be super handy. Now, in this particular scenario, in this particular case study, you might be able to notice that they have a lot of different manufacturing sites. So this is going to be a very interesting architecture because their distribution and retail business is probably going to be separate from manufacturing. Now, manufacturing might be hosted in the real ERP that they might have in the backend, but the retail division or the retail architecture is probably going to be separate or isolated from that, the way your processes are going to be designed inside your enterprise. So here, the manufacturing is a different ball game. you cannot host the manufacturing orders inside your OMS. And again, depending upon the kind of architecture that you would like to design. For example, let's say if your OMS layer is acting as the demand for your manufacturing ERP, then OMS is going to capture the order and it might split, it might simply send to the ERP. So again, depending upon the architecture and design, for the most part, if you are, let's say, pure play manufacturer and you are doing, let's say, 10-20% retail, maybe selling on Amazon, not sure if you really require an OMS. So OMS is not going to be relevant for everybody in the market. But if you are pure play retailer, you require that POS experience, you care for that unified experience, that's where the OMS is going to be super critical for your architecture, not so much for manufacturers. Here, Fluent Commerce's technology suite includes software for in-store tooling, inventory and location management, customer service, fulfillment optimization, and reporting. Now, there are a lot of different terms. They could mean a lot. Okay. So for example, let's say if you go to apparel space, in the apparel space, the kind of POS system as well as the OMS that you are going to see, they are going to have very thick process from the merchandising perspective, because merchandising and design and planning and probably supply chain is their bread and butter. The way they plan the inventory, the way they place the inventory inside the stores. So for the most part, when you look at the capabilities of Fluent Commerce, it's not going to have as deep capabilities that you found in the legacy systems. So a lot of companies are still using them as their merchandising system, planning system. But if you care for that this particular tool is going to provide you the omnichannel experience, but you might be making a lot of compromises in terms of the kind of inventory capabilities that you had or merchandising capabilities that you had with the legacy systems. And hopefully one of these days these systems will be able to catch up on all of those capabilities. But as of today, they might not be able to do all of that, or you might require significant development to be able to enjoy all of those capabilities. But these capabilities, especially when you are looking at apparel space, or any fashion accessory space, that is sort of the bread and butter in the retail space. And if you look at the kind of capabilities that they have things such as DAM. That is going to be part of, for the in-store process, not for the e-commerce experience. For e-commerce experience, there might be a separate DAM. So the whole e-commerce experience that you need to have in your digital layer, traditionally the POS layer accommodated all of that. And some of the examples of those systems are going to be, for example, teamwork is very common in the apparel space, and they have all of those capabilities as part of the system. So in this particular case, you are probably not going to get all of that, or maybe you need to develop, or there might be some add-ons available, but you are going to get the technology experience, the speed, the performance, as well as the newer business models, BOPIS, ROPIS, etc. They are going to be slightly easier to implement with Fluent Commerce. Now, customer service is a very interesting place wall. Now, depending upon the architecture. So now, if all of your customer service folks, the only thing they are using is this system, then you might be okay. Then you can use this system as your customer service system. But that is rarely the case, because sometimes the customer service is going to get a call and they might not be able to answer all of their questions just based on the order data. And sometimes they need to look at the other systems as well. So, for example, let's say if your order data is segmented across multiple systems, you might have some information inside ERP, some information inside this one, then the customer service could be all over the place. So you need to read between the lines when you are looking at the capabilities. So when these guys are trying to claim they have capabilities for customer service, they are primarily talking from the commerce perspective as well as from the retail POS experience. The fulfillment optimization is the same thing. So depending upon how much fulfillment activity is happening inside the OMS layer, not all could be there, because something might flow. Let's say if you have B2B orders, they might go through your ERP and ERP might send to your warehouse. So that's a possibility as well. So again, depending upon the kind of architecture that you would like to design and the role that your OMS is going to play in the architecture will decide, what experience you are going to get out of your architecture as well as the system. Now, some more commentary here. So coming from 2021, so here the announcement was they had joined the Adobe Exchange Partner Program as the premium partner. So they have very tight alignment with Magento as well as Adobe Commerce. I think they have pre-baked integration. And again, as with any pre-baked integration, they might not have all of the flows supported the way you would like to see the integration. So they might claim that they have integration available, but make sure you are going to vet your flows in terms of the way your business processes are, because each project may be different, each architecture may be different, each design may be different. So just because it is pre-integrated, you still need to vet, you still need to test, you still need to configure as per your workflow. So make sure you pay attention to that. Now, some more commentary here. They are saying, in addition, Fluent Commerce has developed a connector that enables fast integration between Fluent Order Management and Adobe Commerce and Magento open source. So just one point to note here is they have integration both for the commercial version of Adobe Commerce as well as Magento open source. So that's a big deal, because a lot of companies are going to be on open source. They might not be paying for the Adobe Commerce, the paid version. If that is the case, you can still utilize this particular tool. But for the most part, if you are this mature in your commerce processes where you are probably going to require OMS, then why would you not use the paid version? Because you are going to get far more features with the Adobe Commerce paid version. Now, some more commentary here. Fluent Order Management has the feature richness of traditional OMS, but with the flexibility of a true SaaS offering. So obviously that flexibility is going to be there. The technology is great. The UI is amazing. There's no question about that. It's probably one of the best. But in terms of the feature richness, you still need to vet. Okay, especially when you are going to be in verticals where you require far deeper capabilities as part of your OMS layer. This solution might not have all of those capabilities. As of today, there might be workarounds, but you still need to vet. And sometimes you might need to either change the processes or the architecture, and that's okay if you are building the newer architecture the way they are going to act. So make sure you guys are paying attention to that. Then some more commentary here. Open source customers, the ability to rapidly adopt many omni-channel benefits. And some of the omni-channel benefits that they have mentioned: real-time sync of inventory across all stock locations, so business can view what is available to sell. And I think the keyword that you need to pay attention to here is going to be what is available to sell, because the perspective here is sales marketing. That's what is the perspective. Okay. But typically when you look at the inventory is going to have at least 5 different perspectives in general. Okay. You are going to have the sales, marketing, then you are going to have the supply chain, the fulfillment, the accounting, all. And if you are manufacturing, then you are going to have production, engineering, operations. All of them care for inventory because they are operating on the shared data. So it could be challenging in some of those verticals. So here, the real-time sync that you are talking about is only the OMS. So if you care for the inventory syncing across all of the layers, then that's going to be a different architecture. But here, you are talking about the sales layer. So you need to make sure you understand that in the architecture. Now, some more commentary here. Virtual inventory segmentation to control what stock is available to promise in each market. And that allocation piece is a big deal in general. Okay. And when you are going to be allocating across the channels, for example, you might have scenarios such as you are a store rep at one and you have a customer standing right there, and you might not have a product there. Maybe they are looking for a red shirt, and then you are looking for that available inventory either on the e-commerce channel or on the other stores. So you are going to, number one, look up the inventory. Then you should be able to allocate that inventory or reserve this inventory for this particular customer. Now, this is a big deal in general in the legacy system. They talk that this works, but for the most part, when you look at the web inventory, when you look at the store inventory in general, is accurate. So when you are going to be driving to the other store to find this product which your other rep had allocated for you, sometimes they might say that nope, I don't have it available, and you could have all of those challenges. So that is the problem platforms such as Fluent Commerce is trying to solve, and they are really good at that because you need that inventory visibility across the stores as well as e-commerce. If you are talking purely the POS layer, legacy POS were able to do that, but they really struggled in that e-commerce experience omni-channel experience when you are going to have multiple displays, e-commerce plus your store experience. That's where the problem was in the traditional architecture, and that's exactly what these guys are trying to solve. But again, the OMS layer has to be your centralized layer for the order management. Otherwise, it might not work. You might have the process boundaries separated. For example, let's say if your B2B business is separate, if your salespeople or the consumers are never going to look into that inventory or the orders, then it might be okay to separate this architecture. Okay, B2B is this and B2C is hosted on, let's say, your Fluent Commerce. So that architecture is okay, but you need to set the clear boundaries for each of the system and design the architecture that is going to meet the business goals that you might. Here, then, virtual inventory segmentation to control what stock is available to promise in each market, and that each market is very tricky argument as well. And typically, unless you have that multi-country, multi-market functionality as part of your e-commerce layer, some e-commerce platforms might be able to support, but their boundaries are going to be limited to that e-commerce. In this particular case, you are not only looking at e-commerce, you are looking at every single channel, if you are trying to centralize all of this. Now, the other argument could be, let's say, if you have marketplaces. Now, would you treat this OMS layer as your centralized order management layer for your marketplaces as well? Sometimes that could be all over the place because the connectivity might not exist. Or let's say if the ERP vendors are trying to drive the architecture, they might feel that, this has to go through NetSuite or any other ERP system that you might be using. So again, depending upon what architecture you want and what role each system is going to play, that is going to dictate what customer experience you are going to get from your system design as well as from your process design. Now, some more comments here. In-store pick and pack web app that can be easily tailored to fit specific strategies. Now, pick and pack inside store could be a tricky argument, and that is more of the customer experience play. It's not the real pick and pack that is going to happen in the warehouse. So here, you still need to sort of confirm the inventory. You need to pick the inventory from the shelf, and you need to allocate that to order. For the enterprises, they might have those scenarios. If they are treating their stores as micro fulfillment centers, then they might need these capabilities. So depending upon how complex your commerce processes are, these guys can support all of those processes, which might be challenging with your legacy architecture. Then they have support for advanced sourcing logic, order routing, and splitting based on precisely configurable rule-based workflows. And we are going to look at their screens in terms of the kind of configurability that you have from the order splitting, order management perspective. It's the best that I have personally seen, to be honest. Okay, but here the comment that they have made related to sourcing, that could be a very interesting argument. Now, if you are having your procurement or sourcing go through this layer, then this might be okay. So for example, let's say if you're merchandising, sourcing, procurement, planning, everybody is using this system as their primary system, then it might be okay. But for the most part, for their workflow, they are probably going to have 5 different systems. Okay, in the apparel space, you are probably going to have a PLM. Okay, now PLM requires the visibility into inventory as well. Then there's going to be a handshake in terms of you might have a real merchandising system. So sometimes the OMS alone cannot handle all of the workflows for the sourcing as well as merchandising team, because procurement is going to have much deeper needs in general. But for the most part, they can support this if you are using this system as your sourcing logic. But for the most part, this is really the order management. The goal of the system is going to be order management. Anything related to sourcing, merchandising, you probably need to keep that in the other system and maybe inside the ERP system or the extension, depending upon how you want to design the architecture. The safety stock buffers and the real-time pre-checkout inventory queries to reduce customer disappointment, and the safety stock could be available in multiple systems, but here you are looking at that multi-channel, multi-country experience, and you are able to maintain the safety stock for that. This is not the safety stock that you're going to see in some of the other systems that might be downstream. Some more commentary here. We have Distributed Order Management System, OMS, announces today the launch of Fluent Order Management Experience, and they are calling this category as OMX, which is another buzzword that you might hear, the new low-code platform for order management. And this is very similar to the front end that Commerce Tools has launched today, I believe, or yesterday. And what these guys are trying to do is, traditionally, if you look at the Mac architecture or the headless architecture, the overall development that was required to enable the experience for all of these devices, especially if you talk about the POS experience, it could require a lot of development effort to enable that. So what these guys are trying to do is, okay, so you're going to have the headless experience from the backend perspective, but at the same time, you have the low code, no code platform that can allow you to build easy interfaces for the experience that you care for multiple devices. So this is a great addition in my mind to the OMS layer. And this was my concern, my personal concern with the OMS platform, because you can never replicate the kind of experience that traditional POS systems provided. So if they have the low code no code platform, they can build that quickly. But obviously, that also has to be tested. So it's not as turnkey as you are going to find with some of the other legacy vendors. But at least you are getting the newer business models that you probably need, because most of your competitors are probably going to have that. Here, some more commentary. Low code is reshaping the way businesses build and change software. The work that IT used to do, such as setting up web apps and adopting them for different parts of the company. So yeah, if you look at the pure play headless Mac architecture, then you probably require the developers to be able to enable the workflows. But now you have the no code low code platform. But even the low code no code platform that are not going to be as practitioner friendly, you will still require the consulting expertise because these platforms are complex and you want to make sure that they are configured properly. Otherwise, you are probably not going to get the result. So here, Fluent OMX offers software development kits, and they are talking about SDK. So most marketers are probably not going to be able to use that, even though it is low code, no code. Unless they have very deep software engineering background, or it's probably going to be really difficult for them. That provide powerful tools for extending the platform to their internal clients' precise needs. Once built, these extensions are ready for business users to configure IT teams and can then spend more of their limited time innovating to customer needs, and that's sort of the sales pitch for the low-code platform. This launch also introduces the OMX design system inspired by global best practices and informed by research. Its crisp interfaces and clear navigation shine in Fluent Store, reference web app built for today's in-store fulfillment. And the brick and mortar experience, the store experience, that's where the trick is going to be. How much of that these guys can enable. If you look at the apparel space, the in-store experience is probably going to be okay. But when you look at patches such as your grocery, that's where the POS is very complex. In general, the kind of workflows they are able to support, for example, loyalty, sometimes that could be very complicated to implement. But again, these guys are able to provide at least the basics. So the POS experience is probably going to be a driver, unless you are a pure play DTC shop or 90% of your revenue is coming from e-commerce. That could be a different story. But for most retailers, probably the brick and mortar is going to be the first thing that is going to decide whether this is going to work for them. Okay, so some more commentary here. Fluent Store was designed to empower business users, allowing them to configure the UX for a faster, lower cost rollout and help accelerate development of new components. Without a technical background, that's what they are claiming, but you will still need technical background even with this platform because the platform is relatively complex compared to other commerce tools that you may have used, just because this is designed for those enterprise workflows. And in the enterprise space, the workflows are going to be very complicated in general. So with some training, you might be able to do some things, but for the most part, you'll require consulting help. Most importantly, Fluent Store allows for configuration of a custom pick and pack process, as retailers and brands know that there is no one size fits all approach to store fulfillment, and that's right as well. The store experience is changing, and you need to design a lot of different processes, and that's where they are saying that I have my customized workflow, and that can help you enable all of that, whatever you may be looking for that store experience. But how much they are able to do it and how long that is going to take, what is going to be the cost, is going to be a question. So here they are saying support for a tailored pick and pack strategy, store to store shipping and receiving. Now that's a very important one. In general, the traditional POS They supported the inventory allocation, they supported inventory lookup, but they did not support the shipping and receiving for the most. So now here you can do all of that, and that's where your BOPUS and ROPUS scenarios are going to be really handy. That click and collect experience is going to be handy, and that's why these guys are able to do that, because they can do a lot more. They can enable the same e-commerce experience inside your store, and that's where the real key is with these platforms. Now they have a lot of different things. For example, let's say store layout, store formats vary based on location. At a smaller store, it may make sense to pick by order, while at larger stores, it is more efficient to pick by item, location, or product category. So these are different picking strategies depending upon how much picking and packing that you are doing in the store. If you are treating them as the micro fulfillment stores, then you might need all of this. But for the most part, they don't necessarily pick and pack inside the store. But in the newer business models, now you might want to do that. Order prioritization, stores must balance pick and packing orders with servicing their in-store customers. Then in-store experience, similarly, stores without dedicated staff to pick and pack orders rely on their store staff to do so, taking them away from customer interactions and leading to labor and time inefficiencies. And now the allocation of labor time. So now we are getting into the whole WMS play inside your store. That could be very complicated for most the stores. But if you are an enterprise, they are looking to see how they can enable the same experience inside store, and that's why they need these capabilities. Now, return is a different beast in general. For the most part, in the legacy architecture, what you are going to see is most stores, if you bought from the store, they can accept the return. If you bought from some other store, you need to go to that store. Or if you're e-commerce, even the e-commerce returns, they might not be able to accept inside a store. And the reason for that is because their systems might not be connected. So here now with the omni-channel experience, because you have the centralized OMS layer, the centralized inventory, at least from the sales perspective. So you can process the return, but from the operations perspective, from fulfillment, from supply chain, you still need to reconcile the inventory. So you are never going to get the best solution, I guess, unless you are on one system, but at least you are solving the problems related to your customer experience as well as sales, and that is probably going to be super critical for most retailers. Now, some more commentary here. Fluent Commerce celebrates 129% year-over-year sales growth in 2021. So for the most part, most vendors in the headless Mac space, they are growing a lot, and Fluent Commerce is not an exception. Okay, and if you look at other product categories, for example, let's say if you look at the content modeling platform, or if you look at DAM, you have many different options. Okay, if you look at the e-commerce players inside the headless or the Mac category, you are going to see a lot more options. But when you look at the OMS, there aren't a lot of options for the OMS, and OMS is probably going to be the most critical piece for your experience if you have the brick and mortar component of your business model, and that's why Fluent Commerce matters a lot. So search as well as OMS, for these two, there aren't a very many options. That's why you will see Fluent Commerce, tagging along with a lot of different headless vendors, and they all might be the e-commerce platform. So that's why Fluent Commerce is probably the very unique one that you need to look at if you care for that OMS experience. Here they are talking about benefits include configurable UIs and workflows and the ability to extend with powerful software development kits. Now, businesses can allow their IT teams to focus on the work that solves real business problems, while Fluent OMX takes care of the rest. Now, that's a sales pitch, to be honest, but they are solving a lot of different problems here, at least from the omnichannel perspective, and that's a big deal. So here we have some more announcement coming from 2022. And this is the Commerce Tools announcement, and they became the premium partner for Commerce Tools. If they want to be successful in the brick and mortar and the retail space, they would require some sort of OMS layer. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because 80% of their revenue is still coming from brick-and-mortar experience, and that's why Fluent Commerce and Commerce Tools, they both go together, especially in the retail verticals, and that's why they are going to have pre-integrated workflows for those two solutions. So even though you are buying from two different vendors, and these are best of breed, but for the most part you are probably going to get very packaged experience, even though you are going to get all of those vendor issues. If you have problems with commerce tools, sometimes there might be finger pointing, but that's okay because you are getting the best of breed experience here with these two, and these two are really good in general. Here they are saying is mark certified and is the only order management system in the mark alliance suitable for large global companies, and that's really their play. When you look at these large global companies, they really care for that best of breed experience. Even if they can get a lot of capabilities inside ERP, they might be using ERP only for financial reporting, or maybe financial reporting, MRP, procurement, sourcing, but they might use several different systems as part of the architecture just because they care for that best of breed experience. But in the SMB space, it might be slightly different. So this is a screenshot of their architecture. And here we are talking about not just the stores, not just the marketplaces. We are talking about store, marketplaces, as well as your e-commerce layer. And that's where your omnichannel experience is. That was very, 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 very challenging in the traditional architecture as well as traditional platforms. So this is a good view of that experience. Let me see if I have any other comments that I wanted to highlight. For the most part, I think I'm good, with the only exception being pre-orders and back orders. And even the pre-orders and back orders could be very challenging to implement inside your legacy platforms in the fragmented architecture. So if you're treating this as your centralized order management layer, then you are going to get much better experience with pre-orders and back orders, but your backend is still going to be disconnected. You are not going to get this experience. But depending upon your priority, whether your front end is a priority or the back end. So again, depending upon where the pain points are for your architect. Here now, this is the screen, and this is where I just love it. The kind of order workflow that you are going to get, and you are probably going to get this experience in a lot of B2B centric platform in the commerce space, because you have a lot more order segmentation activity happening. For example, let's say if you have your own marketplace and a lot of vendors are selling through your marketplace, then you would require very complex order splitting algorithms. Sometimes that could be perceived as ERP or PRPs. So those are some of the complex scenarios where the order splitting, order merging, order management becomes very complex. And the way this platform is designed, it can handle all of those complex scenarios. But again, you need to treat this as the centralized hub for your order management. If you are going to be all over the place in your architecture, then you might not get as much value from this tool. Now, these are some of the rules that you might be able to see. So the way their rules are set up, it's almost like a programming language that they are able to expose. So again, it's very powerful. It's very convenient. Yes, it is designed from the developer perspective, but once you learn the power of this, then you are going to feel what all you are able to do. And this is probably going to be very similar to what you can do in Excel sheet, but obviously at much higher power. Here you can do a lot just because you have the data integrity that you are not going to find in a spreadsheet. So it's literally they are exposing the programming language to be able to do a lot of things from the order management perspective, which is mind blowing what they can do here. And that's where the consulting expertise is going to be handy, because learning this will take years and multiple implementation before you can really understand how this tool can help with your workflow. Now, this is the UI of the tool. So obviously it's going to appear very similar to other e-commerce platforms, but here not only you have the warehouses, you have your networks, you have the arrivals, the collections, the waves, the stores, the e-commerce. So it goes far deeper in the order management functionality, and that's where their play is. And here, when you look at different locations, the location could be a store or it could be a warehouse. So you can do the handshake between these two in the legacy platform. That handshake was very difficult to implement. It was very error prone, and you never got the experience. Your inventory accuracy was going to be all over the place. So here again, depending upon the, if you design the right architecture that is going to be compliant with this tool, then you'll get the results. So architecture and design is the most important part, even with the best tool. So here now, the kind of capabilities that these guys are going to have. For example, let's say if you want to search based on SKU and the location, and this you are searching across all of your channels, and that could be very powerful. Now, searching this required a lot more clicking in the legacy platforms. That experience is far easier, but you will require a lot of training before you get used to of these things and how you are going to be. If you have a little bit of programming background, these things might be easier just because this is done more from the programming perspective. But even today's marketers, they have a little bit of programming knowledge, so they might be able to pick up very easily as well. But the kind of power that you're going to get with this tool, this is mind blowing, the things that they are able to do. And these are the things that you are going to be needing for your enterprise. Now, this is the pick and pack functionality. Overall, if you have a little bit of WMS background, then you are going to feel, okay, this is super lean. And that's probably right assessment as well, because obviously it's meant to be very lean. Okay, it's only designed for that in-store pickup experience. Again, if you are creating a 50,000 foot warehouse inside your store, I don't know why you would do that, because most of these stores are going to be in a premium location. So the cost of real estate is going to be far higher in general inside these cities. So in general, you don't want to create large warehouse. But if you're creating a very small micro fulfillment center, that's where this particular pick and pack functionality may be handy in making sure the inventory is allocated at the right step, and then you have a little efficiency. But for the most part, it's probably not going to be as useful in general, just because it's a very small store. So why do you have to go through the inventory process? But sure, they can do that. This is the architecture coming from the commerce tools, and they are able to sync a lot of data in the pre-baked settings. So for example, they are able to sync the products, orders, inventory, delivery info, and the order status. So you are going to get a lot, but still you need to verify if this is going to have all of the workflows that you are going to be needing. Obviously, they are going to claim that you can customize, you can configure the way you like, but that's your development, that's your consulting time that you're looking. So depending upon if you are enterprise, then you are probably going to have in-house developers, and they probably should be able to do this, but you will still require some sort of consulting help to enable that, even if they are simply acting as the advisors. So here they are saying sell available inventory from DCs, dropshippers, stores, real-time visibility of inventory across channels and markets, order routing and fulfillment location selection, ship from nearest store. But again, the role of commerce is going to be commerce, the e-commerce, and the OMS is going to be probably serving as the quarterback for that order management functionality. But here, one of the things that you might be able to notice that some of the order data is actually coming from your ERP, WMS. So you have some communication going between these two systems. And now you are bringing all of that order data. If your Fluent Commerce is going to be the centralized order management system, otherwise your inventory is not going to sync. So that's why you need to have all of that order data, whatever may be touching your retail inventory. If you have clear separation in your B2C and B2B processes, and those customers never sort of cross the channel, then you might be okay in creating two different swim lanes there for two different business models. But for the most part, if you are treating your Fluent Commerce as your order layer, centralized order layer, then you have to get all your ERP orders that might be coming from multiple channels inside your Fluent Commerce. So again, architecture and design is going to be the key whether you are going to get results or not. Here's some more commentary, and this is going to be for another connector that they have, and I believe this is probably for Magento. So here they are thinking a lot. They are doing the create category, update category, create standard products. So they can do a lot, but I don't think this is going to be enough depending upon your enterprise use cases. So you might require a little customization. So what you may want to do is you should be doing the gap analysis in terms of what is provided as part of the connector. And sometimes you might not be able to see that during the demo. So you need a technical expert who is able to do this, who is able to ask the right questions to be able to do the gap analysis at the interface level, at the field level, what is going to be available and what is going to be the consequence for your requirements, the requirements that you might be looking to implement. But they are doing a lot. I mean, there is a lot pre-baked, to be honest. So this is really good. If you're on Magento, this could be a tool that you might want to look at. Then some reviews here, and here we are talking about the Omnichannel OMS project for International Retail Luxury Group, and they are an enterprise company. They have roughly 1,000 employees, and this person is the order management consultant. So obviously their perspective is going to be slightly biased towards the order management piece. They are going to be designing processes just from the order management perspective, but sometimes when they are going to design the process, they might have downstream issues. So you might want to take that enterprise architecture perspective. Sometimes that could be difficult in the organization if all of the departments might not be aligned with your vision. So sometimes you might not have a choice but to implement whatever is good for you. But if you really want to get results, you have to have that cross-functional alignment across the organization, and you have to design the enterprise architecture before you implement any sort of tool in your architecture. Here they are saying our biggest challenge were the inability to offer new cross-channel customer journeys, personalization, and mutualizing stock positions to leverage cross-channel capabilities. And that's where Fluent Commerce is really awesome. So they are solving real problems that exist in the legacy architecture. Then the most significant benefits have been the implementation of several new customer journeys and high personalization offering capabilities. This is for all regions around the world. In the USA and APAC, business rules and customer behavior are quite different from Europe, and those are real challenges in the market, especially if you look at the retail business model. This is the title for your review: Omnichannel OMS project for international, and this is really the Omnichannel OMS tool as well as the project. So if you're using it as the OMS and you have the clarity in your architecture about the role and what the interaction flows and the handshake is going to be, then you'll be successful with this tool. Then we have one recent review. This is also coming from Enterprise 2022: flexibility to make agile changes and deal with complex requirements. So here our OMS is a crucial piece of technology. Our omnichannel approach utilizes micro fulfillment centers. That's a keyword. If you have micro fulfillment centers, you probably want to look at this. And if you are interested in that business model, you probably want to look at that. All around Australia, close to 40 locations, processing both home delivery and click plus collect fulfillment daily. Fluent has been instrumental in tailoring our fulfillment operation, particularly inventory management. Now, inventory management could be a tricky keyword. I would not call this as inventory management because this is not a real inventory management. Inventory management has a lot of different layers from the merchandising, procurement, finance, operations. So this is the inventory management only from the sales perspective. And obviously this particular person is probably from the sales and marketing order management department, and that's why they are thinking this is inventory management. But for retailers this might be okay, but for other business models you might have challenges, and you need to design the architecture accordingly. We have made several changes to order routing and fulfillment logic that would be extremely difficult without a flexible platform like Fluent, and I have to agree with this comment. Fluent OMS is providing us with a solution for the complexities of micro fulfillment, and that is right. Again, if you have very complex micro fulfillment, either wish list or you are doing that currently, this is the platform that you want to choose, and allows us to understand how our stock moves across those fulfillment centers, and they are really agile overall in accommodating many different. One more review, and this is probably the last one. So 2022, and they are saying digital transformation aspirations. Fluent solves this problem by being a no-brainer for us in the OMS space, and that is right as well. So I have to agree with this comment too. And now, if you enjoyed this video, this is part of our e-commerce series for which we meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution or the technology related to e-commerce space. So don't miss that. I'll see you next week. Thanks for dialing. Thank you so much for listening in to today's episode. I always pick up learnings from my own review, and hopefully you picked up some learnings for yourself as well. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Noemi Kiss, who shares her insights into how the water industry works and how its sales cycle differs from other industries. Also, the interview with Jacqueline Laufer, who shares her insights into the Shopify POS and the challenges associated with international payments. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.